evening, good morning, wherever you are. I will start this with a brief introduction. This is a two-day event that the Heritage Center and IIT Madras Alumni Association have put together to celebrate IIT Madras's heritage, as well as, of course, the merciful ending of 2020. We're all looking forward to a much happier 2021, I'm sure. The program today is just a lot of nostalgia, a lot of reminiscences. We are going to, in the first part of the session, we are going to hear recorded messages from alumni, mostly from abroad, maybe a couple of locals as well. This runs for about 20 minutes. And after that, I will moderate a session including 5 of our retired faculty members who have been gracious enough to call in, as well as several alumni who have also agreed to be on the live panel. I expect this would be another 20 minutes or so. And after that, Lata will take over and have more of a free-flowing interactive session. Apart from the panelists, I invite all the attendees to also start posting their messages on chat. If you have any queries for the panelists, the alumni, as well as the faculty, you're welcome to post them. But you're also welcome to post your own memories of IIT Madras days. We'll make sure that we capture these and make them available on our website. So do feel free to start typing in your best memories of campus life. So with that, I will now ask Rakesh to begin the video of the pre-recorded recollections of our alumni. Go ahead, Rakesh.
Maybe a good story to start with is how Venki and I met. How clearly Venki is 5 years. We are 5 years apart. Venki is 5 years senior to me, obviously. So there was no.
I sort of resent the clearly and obviously here, but leaving.
So there is no mathematical way we could have overlapped at IITM, but we did meet on campus. Even though we didn't meet at IITM campus, we met on the Stanford campus. So when I came, I graduated from IITM and came straight to Stanford for my PhD. And Venki also started the PhD program at the same time. Although along the way, after IITM, he had gone to UCLA and picked up a master's, done some very interesting work there, and then worked for some time. And then he came and he joined the PhD program. So we both entered the PhD program at Stanford at the same time. And it turned out that our residences, the graduate residences that we've been assigned to on Stanford campus, were pretty close to each other. So we just bumped into each other on the street in between. Venki, you want to take over from there?
Yeah, so Anand did not have a car at that point, and grocery shopping was not the easiest thing without a car on campus. I had a car, obviously, because I'd been working for a few years and all of that. So that was the point of initial connect. And so I used to take him and his roommate, who also coincidentally was another IITM alum, to grocery shopping. And I think from there, our collaboration began, which is now, I think, almost 30 years. So it started, like I said, because we had the shared affinity of being from IIT, even though we met on Stanford. But really, I think from then on, it's obviously been a shared point of reference for both of us.
Yeah, and then we did some very interesting research work together at Stanford. Some of the research, which was in Venki's thesis, which we did together, actually was very foundational for starting some key industries and so on around data analysis and stuff like this. But we, after a while, we were co-founders of a company called Zenview together. And in that company as well, we had a lot of, we had a couple of other IITians who worked there, including STS Prasad, who also worked with us at our second startup, Cosmics, which incidentally had many more IITians. So, Venki, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, no, STS Prasad, a very colorful personality. He was 1 year my senior on campus, and I was always very petrified of him because the rumor was he was a raging communist and used to attend all the communist meetings and stuff like that, which actually I later found out was very true. Okay, so I was very scared to bring him in initially for an interview because I was actually pretty scared of him. He's a very scary looking guy with a big beard and all of that, but one of the sweetest guys you'll ever meet, as I later discovered. So we actually got him into Jungly first, and then he joined us again at Cosmics. And Cosmics was a veritable, bee's hive of IIT Madras alums. Our VP of Product, VP of Engineering, VP of Ops, Anand and me, just a whole bunch of folks were actually a CTO, Sesh, was also from IITM. So we really, went deep into the IITM our heritage at Cosmics, and it worked really well at the end of the day.
I mean, so it's been by what 30 years since almost, right? Since both of us have been out of IITM, but we still are very well plugged in and connected to many IITM people, our batchmates obviously, but many others as well. And we sort of interact with them on an ongoing basis. Suddenly they pop up in the context of a business deal, or they show up as the founder of a company that we are interested in investing, so it just it's sort of something that's a pleasure every time it happens. You bump into somebody from IITM, and then you can chat about IITM on the hostel and stuff like that for some time. So this is something that that seems to keep happening.
Yeah, no, it's great to have that shared culture that instantly that you share some similar sort of at least ways of thinking about things that make it very easy to sort of connect at a very personal level.
Hello, my name is Ashok Krishna. I'm a 1974 graduate of IIT Madras. My recollections of the social scene at IIT Madras harken back to my last 2 years there. In my penultimate year, I was the caricaturist artist for the Campus Times magazine, which is not there anymore. And that led to election as Institute Fine Arts Secretary in my final year. And along with the General Secretary and my colleagues who were secretaries for literature, social events, sports, and so on, we were really proud that we created Mardi Gras. And Mardi Gras was the forerunner to Sarang. The name changed in 1996. And we had this bold idea that we'll take the cultural events that were always held in January and extend invitations to our friends and contacts in other colleges outside Chennai, outside Madras. So we contacted people in St. Stephen's and Miranda College in Delhi and others in Bangalore. And we did this all by ourselves. I printed the invitations, put up posters, and my colleagues actually went and picked up students from the train station or the airport, hosted them in hostels, and we pulled off this miraculous event where we had national participation in an event that used to be local. And that spawned what eventually became Sarang. And now I hear there are tens of thousands of people that attended. So that's a wonderful memory I have from my time at IIT Madras.
It is so exciting for me to be part of the heritage celebrations. When I think back to my time at IIT Madras and I think of the open air theater, I remember as a young teenager, I was 16 years old the first time, and I stepped onto the stage and I looked, and it looked like there were thousands of people, and it was both exciting and nerve-wracking. I also remember the indoor CLT, which was so crowded during our Mardi Gras events, the festival that I think now you have Shastra. We used to do Just a Minute and debate and theater. And once the seats were completely filled, I remember people sitting in the aisle, standing in the back. And it was just such an enjoyable experience, such an enriching experience. And I am so pleased to see IIT Madras going from strength to strength. And I wish everyone the very best. Those were the most unexpectedly rewarding years of my life. They were exciting and thrilling to be part of this community. And I made several lifelong friends. And I have such regard for the education I received there and the instructors and the professors. So good luck and thank you for allowing me to be a part of your heritage celebrations. IIT Madras is a treasure in my mind.
I was at IIT Madras between 1986 and 1990, and I was at Alaknanda Hostel. One of the most fond memories that I have, and something that I and my classmates enjoyed thoroughly, and this is week after week, is our experience at OAT, the famous open air theater. It was every Saturday night there was a movie, and typically an English movie when we were there. I believe that has changed now. And for someone like me, who before I came to IIT, I only watched a lot of the Hollywood movies opened up for us. But more importantly, the whole ceremony associated with that OAT thing, it starts Saturday evening with a mad rush to the hostel mess, where there was a very special dinner Saturday night. I would call it the best dinner any time of the week. And then after that nice meal, we would go back to our rooms, pick up our pillows, and make the slow walk to the OAT. And along the way, meet up people from other hostels or other wings, and then eventually reach OAT and find our special spots where we all used to hang out, wait for the movie to start. And the beauty of having something like this in Chennai, Madras at that time, is that the weather is always good. There's not a single, I don't remember a single evening where it was too hot or too cold. It was always pleasant. Wait for the movie, trash talk during that time, watch the movie, enjoy it. And then, of course, that nice walk back reluctantly to the hostel, and then the follow-on trip to Tarams and elsewhere, of course, that goes without saying. The overall experience, in every aspect, right? One is watching movies, which is enjoyable in its own right. Second is hanging out with classmates, hostel mates, other people, running into faculty members and other staff along the way. It is just, I would call it a consummate experience at every level. Just fun. The fond memories lasts forever, and hope to be there and watch movies once in a while during our reunion years.
My memories of IIT campus in terms as a student, it's very formative in the sense that my longest lasting friendships came both from KV IIT and then from IIT Madras. I think that's something that all alumni recall very, very fondly. And for me, IIT, the campus really means friends and family, deep friendships. In fact, my class, we do now that especially in the pandemic, the only silver lining is that remote and online has now become more normalized. And so we have regular, WhatsApp group, of course, but also regular Zoom calls. And I think that's brought us together. In fact, you can pick up conversations almost like, from 25 years ago. And I think that one of the main things that it made us, essentially took children and made them into adults. The 4 years we spent made us independent. The 4 years we spent on the campus as students at IIT. And it also means family to me. I met my wife, who actually grew up on IIT campus, Suchitra. She was a first-year student when I was in my 4th year. I met her then, and so she was also an IIT Madras student. My sister studied there. She met her husband there, and I've had and of course, I have many friends who also met their spouses in IIT. So for me, it means deep friendships and family. So thank you again for this opportunity. The Heritage Center is just a wonderful institution within a great institution, and I'm happy to be part of this celebration.
Thank
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk about my magical 5 years in IIT Madras. I was there from 78 to 83, doing my BTech in chemical engineering. Very wonderful campus. And one of the best things for me was I was in Sarayu Hostel, the girls' hostel. It was a sisterhood of great friendships. Everyone had so many things to say. The seniors who advised all of us new ones when we came in. That was great. We used to go to see the weekly OAT movies all together as Sarayuites. My class had 6 girls totally, 4 of us in Chemi. One other wonderful thing for me was I was on the institute teams for both shuttle and table tennis. And so we used to go for practice almost every afternoon. And it was a real good break that I went off to do something athletic before coming back for studies for the various periodicals and so on. One other standout for me was participating on a campus treasure hunt where there were 4 or 5 of us and the 2 girls, me and one other. We were in charge of trying to solve the clues where a couple of our classmates who were boys were running around on cycles. It was so much fun. We didn't win, but I still remember very fondly how much fun we had doing those sorts of things. And just the overall sense of accomplishment and youthful joy, I think, that IIT had. Thank you.
Hi, folks. I'm Munishi Sanyal, 1970, BTech, Mechanical Engineering, Ganga Hostel, and also the winner of the Governor's Gold Medal. My father was an army officer and I was brought up in a boarding school. So sports DNA was inbuilt into me. In athletics, I got medals in shot put and discus. I was also the captain of the football team in 1970. And in rowing, I won the single sculls and the coxless pair championship in the Amateur Rowing Association of the East, which is participants from India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Hong Kong, and Singapore take part. In boxing, which I began at a very early age of 8, I won the heavyweight title in IIT quite easily. That was really a cakewalk. And the good thing is, after that, everybody wanted to be my friend and nobody argued with me because I was a heavyweight boxing champion. So all of you, I suggest you become boxing champions. Pow! Okay. Now, a key thing is that in our times, we were very much more all around as students and we were good at sports and academics somewhat. But today, the intensity on academics is so high where people prepare 3 years for a joint entrance exam. It becomes very difficult for you all to have the same all-round exposure that we had. Well, with that, all I can say is and suggest that you lead a more balanced life because you can't be nerdies all the way through life. I live here in Silicon Valley in California, and I'm busy with Pan IIT work, which I started. And also more recently, I've started the IIT Startups, which is an accelerator for IITians. And we are the 4th largest unicorn builders in the world after Stanford, Harvard, Berkeley, and I'm busy with that. So have a wide exposure to whatever you do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm NS Vinod from the class of 1986, BTech Civil Engineering from Jamna Hostel. I was a member of the photography club for all the 4 years of my stint at IIT Madras. And what I remember most fondly was the easy access that we got to all of the institute's functions just by draping a camera around our necks. During the Silver Jubilee Convocation function that was held in 1983, the President of India, Mr. Gyani Zail Singh, was the chief guest, and I was perhaps the sole student photographer who covered the event in close quarters. And of course, there was Mardi Gras, the IIT Madras Cultural Festival held annually, and this got teams from all over India to our campus. And I had great fun taking photographs of all of them, making friends, and all these fantastic memories are preserved. 400 photographs from my collection are now on the IIT Madras Heritage website. And that is my greatest joy to be able to share all these memories with all of you. Thank you.
I was a chemical engineering major with a chemistry degree, graduated in 1966, third year batch of IIT Madras. The very first labs we attended were electronics and power systems, electrical engineering. They were a little bit different, and I still vividly remember some experiments on amplifiers and electric motors. Later on, we went to mechanical engineering labs on engines and unit operations and chemical engineering. In chemical engineering, we were setting up some of the lab equipment, and that gave us a different perspective on what was happening. Our classes were large, and all the classes were held within the IIT campus. And what was challenging is the surprise test. That is something I remember. It took us a little bit of time to get adjusted to it. And we had a small class in chemical engineering, and we developed a good rapport between each other.
So I've been asked to talk about my lasting memory of dining on campus at IIT Madras. I will say I'm Suresh Karamella. I was there from 1981 to 85. And while we did our fair share of complaining about food while we were at IIT, looking back, I cannot but marvel at the quality of food we were served, especially compared to what I understand is general fare in hostels at most institutions. So much of our time together is spent around food, and naturally a lot of our memories are tied to dining halls. So two memories stand out for me. One was the amazing taste of the masala omelet. That was always a treat for dinner at Saras. That was the hostel I stayed at. We looked forward to it ahead of our ritual trek to OAT for the weekend movie. And there's something about the taste of that omelet that I've tried to reconstruct in later years, but even five-star hotel breakfast chefs have never been able to quite come close. So I cherish that. But the more intimate memory I have is something that happened in my first year when I was in Mandakini. I had fallen sick and had to spend some days and nights in the health center. It was not a pleasant experience, and being a first-year student made the isolation harder. But I still remember this dining hall worker, his name was Obul Reddy, who would bring me bread and jam and other food that I could keep down. I couldn't eat quite a bit of the food. He was a shy man and didn't speak much, but I always found him very caring. And to this day, I'm thankful for the human touch and the concern that he showed always, but especially at that difficult time. So I wish IIT Madras, its staff, its faculty, its students, and the Heritage Center my very best for many more years of leadership in Indian higher education. Thank you.
So as a female research scholar, what are my experiences? One thing is that IIT always made you feel comfortable as a female. I was not intimidated, for example, in pursuing the field of quantitative sciences. Even today, there are not many women scientists who are higher up in the academic ladder in quantitative sciences such as physics and chemistry in the United States. So in IIT in the 80s, I was not intimidated to be a PhD student in quantitative sciences. And the environment was a very safe environment. I used to stay up late in the computer center because those days we had to punch cards and then submit jobs. So to get my job, my computer codes decoded or debugged, I had to stay overnight in the computer center. And as a woman, I never felt unsafe at all. And I used to walk back at 3 a.m. to Sarayu, and there was absolutely no feeling of being unsafe inside the campus. So the campus was a perfect bubble to live in and dwell in your research and dive into your research and do it well. So that was one of the that was one of my fondest memories of being in IIT, being inspired and feeling safe and doing quantitative sciences as a woman and achieving the best I wanted to achieve.
In my days, that's the early 80s, the computing center was located on the first floor of the building sciences block and was an excellent place to spend time, especially in summer, thanks to its air conditioning. The sole computing resource was the IBM 370 mainframe, and I vividly remember the hushed environment where we used to type in our punch cards in an antechamber, tie them up in a rubber band, and then hand them over with a silent prayer to the punch card operator. The card reader itself would rapidly flip through the cards and give a satisfying mechanical feeling of the program being ingested into the guts of the system. During our last year, we finally had access to the prime video terminals through which one could directly type in programs. But this novelty was a rare privilege offered only on a strictly rationed basis. We programmed only in Fortran and Pascal, with C still being distant on the horizon. Now, while it may seem paradoxical, I think we were much more careful in our programming in those times because of the huge time penalties involved in a failed compilation or execution, and were therefore closely aware of our code. Whereas today, you keep making minor local fixes until the system eventually gives in and decides to run your program. In fact, I remember lying down on the floor of the hostel room along with a line printer listing of the entire source code and being able to literally see and feel the big picture of the program. Thank you.
Hello, my friends. I am so happy to join you by video. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there. I'm Prem Watsa, the batch of 1971. Well, my memory, my lasting memory, and of course I can never forget it, was Inter-IIT Meet 1970. 1969, we were the second, we came in second. We had never won in the last 10 years, never won. I was the sports secretary in 1970, my last year, and I'd been elected, and the Inter-IIT Meet was in Madras, Chennai, and we had home field advantage. I was very excited. I thought with our team that we could win. I wrote an article in the Campus Times saying how we could win all the sports events and how it would all add up. They had the title, How to Win Without Really Trying. And so everyone thought we couldn't do it. So we had coaches, we had training, we had good food, and we won. To our surprise, we won. We couldn't believe it. We won the Inter-IIT Meet for the first time in 10 years. 10 years later, I'd come back to India, went to IIT Chennai, and I went to the hostels. So I just went quickly all around, and I found out that IIT Madras had never lost an Inter-IIT Meet since that time. And of course now, looking back, we've got the best track record of any IIT. So what's the learning lesson? Anything is possible in this world if you think you can do it. It's been a fantastic experience. My best days were the 5 years I spent in IIT Madras. And I want to wish all of you, God bless you, and wish you much success in your life as you go forward. Thank you very much.
All right. So that was so much fun listening to just a sheer variety of memories about IIT Madras. I can see that the passion is still there. Everybody just loves the old campus, and hopefully they'll be able to come back to the campus very soon once this pandemic restrictions go away. So we now move to the live portion of this session. I want to start with our faculty members who have so generously joined us today. We have 5 of them on the panel. Professor Vijay Murthy, Professor P. Srinivasa Rao, Professor O. Prabhakar, Professor M.A. Parmeswaran, and Professor V. Balakrishnan. I would like to start by asking them perhaps a couple of questions, maybe the same question to all of them, and request them to respond. I have two questions. I think I'll start with the first question, go around all the faculty members, and then come back for a second round with the second question. So the first question, and by the way, I had sent this to them ahead of time so that they have had some time to think about it. So the first question is, during their service with IIT Madras over several decades, what changes have they noticed in the student population as well as attitude over the years? I'd like to start with Professor Vijay Murthy, if you'll be so kind to give your response to that. Professor Murthy?
Yes, please. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this webinar.
You're welcome.
And my greetings to all of you, all the fellow panelists and the alumni. Well, the answer to your question, I think, depends on one's experience and the time span. And in my case, I was at IIT teaching at IIT from 1962 to 1994. And during that period, I did not think there was a much change in the attitude of the students or the composition of the students. From the very beginning, IIT drew students from all regions of the country, and they have been all well motivated. But if there is anything, as time passed by, they become more self-reliant. And with the information spread, they were able to plan their future on their own without advice from anybody else. And I think, if I may use that word, they have become more worldly wise, and they knew where the future lay and the most efficient way to get there. A second point, perhaps I can think of, is that as time went by, the distance between the student and the teacher outside the classroom in their personal relationships, I think, became a little more distant. This may be because the classes have become very big, or it may be my own individual experience, because when I started teaching, I was about 9 to 10 years older than the students. But when I ended, when they called it a day, I was 40 years older. Therefore, this increase in the age may perhaps also was an influential factor. And that's about all that I could say.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Professor Murthy. Professor Srinivasa Rao, would you like to respond? Yes, we can see you. Go ahead, please.
You were asking about the change that we noticed between the students of the earlier years compared to the later years.
Yeah.
Professor Murthy had already given his opinion. Now, the particular characteristic which I would like to point out is that whereas in the early 60s and mid 70s, all the branches were equally popular. Now I see that the entire rush is only towards computer schools, with the result that the core engineering students are just going through the mill, just waiting for the day that they finish their examination in their branch and then move over to IT field or computers field. So unfortunately, it is having a very telling effect on the economy of our country. We are trying to become a service-oriented country from an agriculture-oriented country without going through the rigor of the industrialization in between. So I would like to suggest that the authorities take the necessary steps to see that the core engineering disciplines also get the incentive, necessary incentive. So I don't blame the students. After all, they go to the greener pastures, and everybody does it. So nothing wrong with them. It is up to the society to see that the other branches of engineering also become equally popular. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you, Professor Srinivas Rao. Professor, yes, now you have started screen sharing. Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Yes.
Okay. BTech from IIT Madras, later mechanical engineering from Bangalore. I'm a thoroughly inbred carrier in IIT, joined and retired. And when I joined IIT as a faculty, I was only 2 years senior to my students. So they almost treated me as a friend. I used to visit their hostel and have food. And later I went to Singapore, spent totally 8 years as a faculty, doubly, triply retired. What is the difference? I'm going to answer both the questions because I have prepared the slide.
Yeah, please do.
Definitely the students coming in nowadays are better informed, much smarter. They know what exactly they want to do. They're not vague about their careers. Very smart students, probably more intelligent also. It's definitely there. Now, I agree with Professor Srinivas Rao. I'm speaking for only metallurgy students. Quite a few of them told me I'm here only to get the IIT seal. I'm not interested in metallurgy. And that was not the case when I was working in 1995 and 90. The students were quite devoted to metallurgy. They made a career out of metallurgy. But I wouldn't say that about MTech students because they still are metallurgy profession oriented. Of course, we have our president of our Alumni Association, Ms. Shubha. She is a very good exception, MIT graduates, US MIT, right? Not Chennai MIT. And she runs her own company as a CEO, excellent. That kind of attitude is not there. They just want to seal. And this is a waste of time for the student. And as Professor Rao said, there is a huge amount of waste of money for the government of India. Earlier in my days and later, the students, when they go to US, were thoroughly shocked by the culture, by the behavior of the fellow students. Nowadays, they are well adapted. They fit into the society very well because even in India, many things have improved due to internet and all that. People are better informed. So they very smoothly join the system in US nowadays. That's what I'm told by quite a few of my students, earlier students. Now, what is the nature of interaction? As I said, I'm more, as soon as they pass and go out of the campus, we both do some mid-course correction in our behavior. Their first attitude, first time when he comes back from US, he would like to call me by name. Hi, OP. That is the kind of feeling he has that he has gone to US and come back. I let that because we have to adjust ourselves. And very good students were there. One student even has dedicated his advanced NDT laboratory to my name. And another student, Vijay, he has dedicated his site to me, my name. And he said, how I wish all the guys were like OP. I was thoroughly happy and flattered. Most of the memories are pleasant. One or two very difficult memories. I don't like to point it out here. And generally, I owe everything to IIT, both as a student and as a faculty. Were it not for IIT, I would not have become a teacher. I would have got along with my industrial career. I don't want to tell too many things. Happy New Year, 2021. Hope it is bright and we come out of this pandemic. Thank you, Nagaraj.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Prabhakar. Thanks so much for the effort in putting together those slides. Very nice. Professor Parameswaran, would you like to say a few words?
Unmute, sir.
Perhaps we'll go to Professor V. Balakrishnan and then come back to Professor Parameswaran. Professor Balakrishnan.
Am I audible now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Nagarajan and the other organizers of the Heritage Center for this kind invitation. I have some brief responses to the questions that you mentioned, that you raised. The first change that I've just found over the last 40 years or so is, of course, the enormous numerical increase in the number of students, as everybody else has also observed. For instance, from a first-year BTech population of about 240 in 1980, it's gone to over 1,100 now. The MSc Physics class, for instance, has gone from 20, less than 20, to over 45. And now there are new programs, the dual degree program and engineering physics programs as well. As far as the research scholars are concerned, there's been a tenfold increase in the number. So these are quite dramatic increases. Of course, the faculty strength has also gone up, but not so dramatically. Perhaps a factor of 2 or so in 40 years. What this implies is much larger classes, but of course we have much better audio-visual communication systems and other aids for teaching. On the other side, it also means that larger classes imply a lower average level, and therefore there's some dilution in grades necessarily. As far as attitudinal changes are concerned, the one thing that strikes me most forcefully is that there's distinctly less interest in research among the undergraduates. Other attractive avenues have opened up, of course. Now, of course, we don't need very large numbers of people to go into research, but only people of high quality. Even so, I feel that inadequate numbers of the best are going into research, and that's a cause for concern. On the positive side, the confidence level of students, the level at which they've been informed, has gone up. The networking among students has gone up considerably because of IT, essentially. So in that sense, these are positive changes. But we must keep in mind also the fact that we do need somewhat larger numbers of our best students to get into research. And that's an essential which is going to take some time. It's not fixed overnight, but over the years, it takes time to do this. And positive steps certainly have to be taken in that direction. I'll reserve the answer to the second question till you come back. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Balakrishnan. Perhaps we'll start with the second question with you. The question was, what was the nature of your interaction with students outside the classroom, and do you have any particularly fond memories of those?
One doesn't know where to stop about fond memories. I've been extremely fortunate personally to have always had extremely cordial relations with students, both undergraduate and postgraduate students, both in and out of the classroom. In fact, I've often been asked what my source of inspiration is and so on when I visit colleges and give lectures, etc. This is a common question that all of us have been asked. But I can say in all honesty, looking back, I'm actually amazed at how much I've learned from students. And very honestly speaking, I must confess that my real source of inspiration has always been the students I've interacted with. The fact that one never knows what they're thinking about, what they're going to ask, how their mind works, what kind of new avenues open up when you start thinking about the questions deeply, and so on. As far as the memories are concerned, many fond memories, too numerous to recount, but a couple of them stand out. One funny memory is an incident where two students were caught copying in one of the basic physics courses that I was involved in, because one of them was passing a programmable calculator to the other one. And the problem was to graph the function x cubed as a function of x. Now these two wise men programmed the calculator with linear scale on both x and y axes. with the result that when the graph came up, it was practically touching the y-axis, so the y-axis just looked a little bit. And they were wondering where the graph had gone, but they were caught by the invigilator. So this was an amusing incident. One of the other pleasant incidents that I remember is extended over several years. There have always been students whose answer books were so perfect that I used to use them as model answers and never bothered to write model answers of my own for grading. All one had to do was to look at the answers that some of the students gave, and they were so stunning and strikingly original that they served as perfect model answers. That was a very happy memory which I have and which I'll always cherish. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Balakrishnan. Professor Parameshwaran, are you able to unmute and speak now?
No, still muted.
No, yeah, I think you still have to unmute.
He came online, so.
Yeah, now you're unmuted. Please go ahead. Oops. I think it's still muted.
It is unmuted now?
Yes, please go ahead, Professor Parameshwaran. You are now unmuted.
Let's hope it doesn't get muted again.
Please go ahead.
Yes. I had been interacting with the students as quite a lot, doing especially with the students who do projects with me and the BTechs and MTechs. So they used to come home and we used to have food together sometimes. So we had a good time. And the students were quite free with me in those days. And some of them kept contact, some of them, of course, they lost the contact. But then I had been working at the Alumni Association for, I think, 2 terms I did as Alumni Association President, and we did quite a lot of foundation work to start the thing going. We had good members, student members like Amudachari, Basu John, Varadarajan, Jacob, and so on, who worked very well. And we brought up the faculty Alumni Association to a very active association. I think we revived the campus times also in those days. And it was good. So as far as the students were concerned, they are very free with issue friendly and free. And of course, many of the IIT students, they used to be quite a little, as some of the faculty of members have said, they have their own will and mind. So they don't essentially follow what you say. Then coming back to the first question, I have to agree if I am allowed to answer that now.
Yes, please.
Because I have been in the engineering side quite a lot. And even now I am advising a company in Hosur. So the thing is that the IIT started with the idea that we should supply people who will manage the industry and generate industry. This idea that engineers should make things was there from the very beginning. But unfortunately, the whole thing got watered down, and now the main thing seems to be that the engineers want to manage the industry. But then who will run the industry and who will design the industry, design the products? is still a little big question mark. But one thing I would like to put in here, it's not just the mistake of the students, it's also a mistake of the whole, the industrial situation. The industry basically does not interact much with the institutions because they have their own collaborations. As now the present day Atmanirbhar goes, if you want to become Atmanirbhar, we have to start interacting with ourselves and doing things ourselves. I would like to point out the ISRO as a very good example of things, how things can be done and how things are done with essentially Indian know-how and Indian hard work. I would like the IITs to start to infuse it, to make the students more practical, invention oriented. That way, I think the incubation center started by the IIT Madras is a very good thing. And more interaction with the IIT students themselves and the incubation centers would help to improve the situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Parameshwaran. So going back to Professor Srinivasa Rao, the second question is about interaction with students outside the classroom, and if you have any particularly fond memories of such interactions. Professor Rao?
Professor Rao?
Are you hearing me?
Yes, please go ahead.
I was advisor to the Campus Times during the period from 1969 to 71. One, Mr. Loganathan, I don't remember to which branch he belonged. He was the chief editor from the student side. And Dr. Klein, the German professor, was the other faculty advisor to the magazine. We had a very good time for about 2 years running the magazine. Dr. Klein and Mr. Loganathan were some sort of radicals. I was a little more moderate in my views, so I was a sort of a moderator in bringing out that particular magazine. Then the other incident I would like to recall, I recall with pleasure, is that I was a warden of the Narmada hostel during the period, again, same period, 69 to 72. And the students felt that once the messes were closed, say around 7:30 or 8 p.m., they didn't have anywhere to go to have a cup of tea or a cup of milk or a small snack here and there. So we had a cellar in Narmada hostel, and we started a students' canteen in the Narmada hostel in the cellar. And it was an instant hit. No other hostel had that facility. So not only the Narmada students, but also the students from all other hostels used to flock there and spend a good amount of time in that particular canteen. In fact, most of the other wardens were very angry with me that I didn't consult the Council of Wardens and take their permission before I made that attempt. But later on, the idea spread. All the other hostels also copied it in some fashion or the other. And finally, it culminated in setting up the students' canteen called Quark. As some of the students might be remembering, the Quark of the old times. It is there even today. I saw it last year when I went to IIT campus. But it started on a very, very small scale. And we from the structural engineering laboratory helped the students to design that building, to erect the roof with prefabricated elements, and made it a present to the students to run their students' canteen, Quark. The name Quark was suggested by Professor Ashutam of the mathematics department, and he was one of the wardens at that time. He came along to see how we were erecting the structure, then said, why don't you call it as Quark, the smallest particle in the universe. Then I was also involved in students' magazine Focus. But the Campus Times ceased to come out as as an addition around 75, late 70s. So a students' magazine called Focus took over the responsibility of informing the students of what is happening in the campus and also encouraging their literary talent. I had the good fortune to be advisor also to those people who brought out that Focus magazine. So these were some of the incidents where I had interacted with the students outside my classroom. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Srinivas Rao. Professor Murthy, would you like to respond to the second question about interactions with students outside the classroom?
Can I take a couple of minutes?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. I recall two of my fondest memories, not interactions on a one-to-one basis, but as a part of general faculty-student interaction, in which I had also a participation. In 1973, there was a general strike of all the non-faculty staff of the institute as well as the hostels. And at that time, the hostels ran as usual, and all the electricity and water services were maintained by the faculty. And they got food packets from the restaurants for the hostels, and many faculty members invited groups of students to their houses for dinner in the evenings. And it was a very heartwarming experience. And it was so nice to see early in the morning students bringing milk in the tricycle, the residences of the staff members. And even those who were on strike at that time, they were receiving this milk from the students. It was a good lesson in self-help in facing a crisis. A second incident that I remember is that in the first batch of the students went on an international tour, and nearly the bulk of the IIT faculty, the electrical faculty also were in the same bus with them. So we had, for 4 days, we had very close interaction with them, and we became very intimate with the students. And I remember one funny incident when we stayed in a guest house at Pondicherry, and in one evening, Professor Venkatachalam and I sat in the dimly lit corner of the lounge, and then we were discussing something, and then it dragged on well beyond the normal dinner time. So when we went back to the guest house, Professor Sampath, with a very smilingly said, the students felt that you had gone to the town to satisfy your spiritual needs. And it was a really very funny incident. And these are several incidents are there, but I just recall these two at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Murthy. I want to again thank all the 5 of our faculty members who have spent time with us this evening, and invite them to, of course, stay on for the rest of this session. I see that we are actually over the time limit, but only about 5 or 6 people have dropped out. So I think we'll keep going for at least maybe 30 minutes more if everyone can stick around. So now I want to turn this over to some of our alumni who have called in to the live session. And I'm going to ask them also a couple of questions. The first one is the kind of the inverse of the question that I just asked the faculty, which is alumni memories of interactions with faculty outside the classroom and any particularly fond memories that they have. And I'd like to start with, well, in no particular order, but I'd like to start with Raj Vardarajan, who has been synonymous with our alumni community for many, many decades now. Raj?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay. As you mentioned, when I came back to India in '87, Professor Parameswaran included me in the alumni trust, and then Professor L.N. Ramamurthy was the president. Since then, I have been associated with the Alumni Association. So my claim to fame is just Alumni Association. So I joined, of course, second year as a 5-year degree course, and I quit in 66 and came back. Graduated in 66. So last 2 years compared to the PhD guys, and last 1 year compared to the 3-year degree guys. So because of the Chinese aggression, there was a 3-year degree course. I see Professor Parameswaran, who was instrumental in doing so many things for the Alumni Association. Similarly, Professor Santa Kumar brought the first directory of alumni, and O. Prabhakar brought that up, and he was the president of Alumni Association. So it's a lot of fond memories. So, do you have anything specifically that you want me to touch on?
No, that's fine, Raj. By the way, Rakesh, can you activate a video for all the alumni panelists also? It appears that they are not able to do that. Please enable that. We would like to hear next from D. Chandrasekhar, another alumnus who has been synonymous with the alumni movement till recently, serving as the secretary of the Alumni Charitable Trust. DC?
Yeah.
Please
Good
go
evening.
ahead. Hi.
Yeah. What I remember significantly during my time is we were having the film in the open air theater in a 16mm screen. And we got the 35mm only in the year 1968. That was one big change. So that I remember. And we were all, there was compulsory NCC, and we were all, alternate week, we were taken to the swimming pool construction site, and we were asked to dump concrete. So that was another interesting experience that I remember. And we used to have NCC camps, and we had very tough NCC officers. I don't know, it was not a very good experience, but one night something happened and we were all asked to pack up with the kit bag. We were taken on a march from Ganga Hostel to All India Radio and brought back. That's also I remember. Okay, these are all some of my memories.
Yeah, thanks, DC.
Yes.
So the two questions before the alumni are, your memories of interaction with faculty outside the classroom, as well as the second question I had circulated was your IIT Madras days and how they relate to your current occupation as well as various preoccupations. You are welcome to address those questions, or as DC just did, you're welcome to, just wax nostalgic about whatever you find most memorable about your campus days. So you have complete freedom. Actually, a good transition over to Alamelu, who is the current secretary of the Alumni Charitable Trust. Alamelu.
Thank you, Professor Nag. See, basically, I am the first person in the big group who has not done any engineering. I did my economics and joined MS Industrial Management and did a lot of programming. And of course, my profession is based on the programming knowledge and analytics I have done there. I have so many memories, some shocking, some pleasant, particularly a girl from a strict Christian institution with strict rules and all to come to a co-ed, uncontrolled, free IITM. It was total freedom for me. And I was terribly shocked to see Professor Anantaraman smoking while teaching in the class. That was the first shock I got. But quite a few good memories, lot of boyfriends, enjoyed my time in the institute. During my MTech days, we were asked to give a flow chart for some assembling. When all my classmates were giving the flow chart for a fan or some machinery, I gave flow chart for paddy cultivation. My professor said, can you give something different from that? I went on to give a flow chart for sambar preparation. So it was appreciated. And I was thinking, okay, after all, they agree, even if it is something different from engineering. That was a revelation for me, because during my colleges, we were asked to be in a particular sphere and we have to fit into it. That gave me a lot of freedom. And Professor Ambirajan, he was teaching economics then. And when I cleared my Indian Economic Service, he called me and said, why are you here doing your MS? You must go and take up your IAS and prove to this world that there is local talent and brilliance available for India to look for local economists to take and plan its economics. But it's a different story that I didn't stick on to it. And the funny thing is, all my male classmates, I did my MS, all my MTech students will be my friends. They will come to the women's mess on Sundays when bread, butter, jam will be served, because it is limited quantity in the boys' mess, it seems. For us, on the table, they give 1 kg jam and 1 kg butter, and there will be 3 layers of 1 layer of butter, 1 layer of jam, bread on either side for them to eat. So I used to have guests for my Sunday breakfast. We are still in touch, and I thoroughly enjoy. And the one other girl along with me, Preeti Timaya, she had done some advertisement movies and all when she was a student. Now she's a psychologist working in Johns Hopkins, US. So I have very pleasant memories, but honestly, more as an MS student, I had a lot more experience and interaction with the institute as an alumnus. Thank you. I enjoy every bit of it.
Yeah, thanks, Alamelu. Shubha Kumar's name has already been mentioned earlier. Shubha, you want to
Yeah,
say
sure,
something?
Professor
Yeah.
Nag. I think after Alamelu's, really exciting talk there, I think I'm going to address the 2 questions you'd shared with us. So I graduated from IITM with a BTech in metallurgy. And today I run a manufacturing company that manufactures precision automotive and aerospace components. We supply to global OEMs and tier 1s. I'm just going to give a little background, because otherwise it's hard to explain what I do. So we've got a number of technology innovation awards from the government and industry bodies and our customers. And technology is a key differentiator for us. And I'm involved in developing the strategic roadmap and guiding the technology differentiation for our company. So basically, IIT is where I picked up my fundamentals of understanding the varied technologies and to be able to grasp completely new things that are technology related. And I think that's helped me a lot. I've managed to do very different things in my life before manufacturing. So it's including software and very varied industries and technologies. I've been able to be part of those. And but most importantly, beyond technology, I would say we learned how to think at IIT, and that is what I think I use the most, whether it's my occupation or my preoccupation. And coming to interactions with faculty, Professor OP, who was on this panel, was my thesis advisor for my BTech project. And he's one of the nicest persons I've known. He's so humble and approachable, and he gave us a lot of freedom to learn and grow. Actually, my BTech project was not in metallurgy. I could do something on electronic materials that then enabled me to branch out into a different field of material science in graduate school. And that also changed what I could do in my career later on in the US. Of course, I'm now back into very metallurgy roots today, because we run a lot of metallurgical processes. And Professor OP also was the one who pulled me back into the Alumni Association in the 90s when I was in India for a couple of years in between. And I want to talk about a few other opportunities we had. Professor Keshwan Nair allowed myself and a friend to work on a project right after our 3rd semester to develop an extension for an XRD machine, where they to test a very large ship part that had failed. And we did all the design work, but in those days we didn't have the CFI and access to machines ourselves. So we had to run around campus to fabricate this attachment. Finally, we got help from a lot of people and got it done eventually. So amazing experiences. And I've been in touch with a number of faculty over the last couple of years. And it's been amazing that some of them actually remember me after 25 years. And Thank you for everything, and wish you all a very happy New Year. Thank you.
Thanks, Shubha. Rajan Srikanth is another very devoted and very involved alumnus, and I'll now invite him to say a few words.
Sure, thanks, Nag. I'll start with your first question on interactions with faculty that I remember. The first one has to do with somebody who's unfortunately not, I don't think is with us anymore, Professor Prithviraj, who was head of mechanical engineering for several years. In my third year, I don't know what madness drove me to it, but I think, I'm not sure whether I approached him or he approached me, but I volunteered to start the Mechanical Engineering Association in the year 1980. And I think it had been around, but it had become dysfunctional. And I suppose he saw in me somebody who actually desperately wanted to do something other than academic because I was not very good academically. So I stepped into that role, and very fond memories because it also helped me realize the importance of having a champion for anything that you do. Because Professor Prithviraj understood that that it was going to be difficult to get students and faculty to come to this MEA, this Mechanical Engineering Association meetings. So he made attendance mandatory. And there he realized IITians, being who they were, would be very smart. They'd come in one door and go out the other door to these MEA meetings after marking attendance. So he made sure there was a faculty member posted at each door so that the people that came in never went out. So he was just a great guy. I had a real wonderful experience understanding how to make things happen, if you will, with working with Professor Prithviraj. And then subsequently, and I was looking forward to Professor P.S. Rao mentioning this, but he didn't. He's done a lot of things which I just learned about today. But he also was the dean of academics, I think, when I was in my final year. And so with him, I was part of the process of putting in place the 4-year BTech degree. So he may or may not recall that, but that was challenging because we had to architect, what do you do about the transition batch? That was a tough thing to decide, is because, here we were the chance that 2 batches would graduate at the same time, the last 5-year batch and the first 4-year batch. So I was the academic affairs secretary at that time. And so I had the opportunity to work with Professor P.S. Rao and other administration at that time, all of which actually leads me to the second part of your question, which is how has the experience at IIT shaped what I ended up becoming? And for that, it's worth just a little bit of backtracking. I came into IIT as having been the school topper at DAV Gopalpuram, which was the only campus for years. I'd been head and shoulders above everybody else. I came into IIT and realized I was nothing. That I was surrounded by people that were academically way more accomplished and capable than I was. So I realized that if I wanted the same feeling of rush of being on top of everything, I had to get into areas beyond academics. And IIT was, in that sense, the training ground for me to recognize that I could reinvent myself. And I reinvented myself at least a couple of times at IIT. And then after that, in several other occasions after that, I did my PhD in business, became a faculty member at the business school at the University of California, Berkeley. Then I became a consultant. I was a global partner at Accenture, came here as the head of Mercer. And of course, even the last few years, I've reinvented myself as an angel investor and so on. I've been working, as you know, Nag, with the incubation cell. I'm glad to see Professor Parameshwaran talk about the importance of the incubation cell as a very important vehicle of how IIT is reinventing itself and making itself more relevant to society even more than it ever has before. So it's been a fabulous journey, and it all started at IITM. And honestly, I don't think I would be who I am without those early experiences at IITM. So that's what I had to share.
Yeah, thanks, Srikanth. So we have a few people who have called in all the way from the US. Actually, a few of them had to leave. I would have loved to hear from Seshan Ramohan and Ashok Krishna and Kamala also wanted to join the live session, but I think they also had to leave. And I know that Sujata Dubey had to leave also. But Girish is here, Girish Mukai, who's the president of the IIT Madras Foundation. Girish, you have something to add to your video message?
Sure, Professor Nagarajan. Yeah, I tell you, I had a
phenomenal time at IIT Madras, right, when I was there. And number of professors, influenced me incredibly. I mean, one professor that really had a big influence on me is Mama, Professor T.D. Narendran. I took his OR class, and that really even though I was mechanical engineering, the OR class completely transformed me, in terms of that whole field. And later I went on to get a PhD in that. So just absolute, and of course, Mama's PJs really has rubbed off. And to this day, that is one characteristic that I carry with me. My apologies to all my friends and family that I subject them to, those and worse PJs over time. Then Professor Balakrishnan, he's had a very outsized influence on me as well. Being my uncle, my cousin Madhavan, who was in my class, we used to spend a lot of time at Professor Balakrishnan's house, and just the intellectual prowess that existed there was osmosis or whatever it is. Just I could gather a few things from that on and off, but just could appreciate the level of knowledge and intellectual curiosity and the ability to make a difference. It sheds a whole different light, right? And also being the class rep for my class, I ended up, distributing books to my class. I can say with a lot of confidence that a lot of books passed by me, even though I didn't read any of them. And today, very fortunate as a volunteer and CEO of IIT Madras Foundation, I get to interact with a lot of people at IIT Madras, all the way from Director Bhaskar to Dean Mahesh to Professor Nagarajan when he was part of this effort, who started this, and of course a ton of faculty and others at IIT Madras. I tell you, nothing like it. This is an institute that has produced people of excellent, world-class caliber, who I am just fortunate to interact with on a daily basis. All of our donors are very successful alumni, and they've just numero uno in their fields. So being able to interact with them is a privilege, and I find myself very, very fortunate to actually have had this opportunity and this journey. And then we're all here to continue to propel IIT Madras to a whole new level, not just in academics, but also in terms of people making a difference in the social impact side, in the arts, as we saw at I4IITM, the talent that exists in addition to academics in terms of people that can music and arts and comedy and various other fields. We just have to continue nurturing this, and again, this community, this alumni community, is one of a kind. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Girish. Bob Nathan is here, I think. Bob, of course, was one time president of the IIT Madras Alumni Association of North America and still stays very much involved in alumni affairs. Bob?
Hi, Nag. Thanks for inviting me, and hey, hi to everybody else on the panel and discussion. So good to see you, good to hear you. And, my memories are, almost like y'all, varied, but Nag has asked me to dwell on something different, So it may be a different tack, but it kind of significantly affected many lives to giving back to society. So that's a little tip I gave you. So I'm here in Greenbelt, Maryland. I operate a couple of business, and I'm still busy at my old age. Thank God, we're all safe and happy, and headcount matches. So my lasting memory, he asked me, what is your lasting memory? NCC, NSS, NSO. Nag knows that I wasn't a great academic student. So you go ahead and ask me this wild question. Anyway, but really, it's a very true question, near and dear to my heart, is the NSS, the National Service Service Organization, right? So our society, I think it was it was really a good deal for many of us because MCC and NSO was good for the athletes, and MCC and for those that are, it really did inspire them, So what we did was we really needed a third option, and in my fourth year in 1976, my first semester, I kind of was tapped by the other Vijay Kumar, God Vijay Kumar in 76, and he recommended me to direct the late Dalai and again, the late C.V. Sethanathan, the esteemed registrar who kind of was, could get anything done. These two were a great, powerful combination. They got into their heads that they are going to redeem, transform, do something for uplifting the lot of the masses, particularly in the vicinity of IIT Madras. So they started a Center for Rural Development, and an offshoot of that was they wanted to bring up NSS to give, inspire students to give back to society. So I did that, and it was 76, and the first IIT, and basically we recruited a lot of students. I still remember going around the hostels, posting these little notices just to announce and recruit students. Okay. Oh, okay, start my video.
Yeah, now it's on.
Okay, I'm sorry. Fine?
Yeah.
Okay, so good. You have the audio, and now you have the pleasure of seeing my face. So
no, your video was on all the time, Bob. Just the last couple of seconds it went off, so it was on.
Okay, so good. Basically, we interacted. We had a good thing, and the option of getting to NSS was kind of really a refreshing option. Many of the students actually came to the fore to call, and we had some very bright youngsters, particularly from the first batch. And that was, to put in perspective, 76, was the first, but Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy was a fresher, right? I don't know if he joined the NSS organization, but his teammates, very, very active, and they brought a lot of innovational thoughts to the projects. And then the next year, of course, guess who was? Of course, Professor Nagarajan was not in IIT at that time, but we made the option available so that when he entered the IIT the next year, following year, he was able to choose NSO, but I don't know NSS, but I don't know if that happened. But really, it made a huge impact. We adopted this village called Narayanapuram, south of IIT, about 15 kilometers south. It was a rural village, farming, dairy farming, and agriculture, and brackish water, and all that kind of thing. Our goal was to very quickly to improve the lot of the people, that is, in creating employment, education, and also primary health care. In all of these things, we use IIT resources to get that. So guess what? We wanted to do it properly, very methodically. So IIT sponsored a trip for our volunteers. I know Chandri, my classmate, and Madhivanan also, they were part of my group and my Inspire group, and they came together. And we went to the Gandhigram Rural Institute for a trip, a mid-semester trip to there, along with Professor Pandalai and C.V. Sethanathan. He was really gung-ho about it because he was also a resident of Narayanapuram, the famous project. So we kind of went there to learn the models of that would work for our adopted village. Looked at several options out there, and it was very educational. Many of our people really, we are not used, young students, not used to the real world and people surviving and all that. And it was an eye-opener for many of us. So we came back and then started planning, getting to work in earnest to plan to build the organization. So we would have short-term, near-term plans, recruiting organization. I had a great lieutenant in Jay Amaran, who was in my hostel, and he really took it to his heart, and he brought a whole bunch of people actively working. And we really methodically worked through all the plans. We actually conducted a survey of the people to see what the village needs were, and actually segregated using demographic study of income, needs, etc. We actually segregated the lowest 30 most poorest villages in the village. So we wanted to have a sustaining employment base for them. So what we did was the Center for, along with the Center for Rural Development, IIT stood as guarantor for some loans to these villages. And being a dairy farming thing, we decided to buy, use a loan to buy them 2 heads of cattle each family. One is to give them some, improve their livelihood and also nourishment for their children and themselves. We wanted to kind of scale up this model later on. So basically that's one of the things that happened, and we actually were successful. And what we did was during the week we would plan for the weekend. We do a little bit, but majority of the work would be in summer camps and winter camps where we would have certain projects executed. So that, and we basically, I won't go to health, we actually realized a lot of things at that thing. The loan, etc., was very good. We actually used we also had a gobar gas plant out there to introduce the rural energy for cooking and other users.
Yeah, Bob, thanks. I think people are starting to leave, so I want to make sure that I give everyone a chance to.
That's right. Thank you.
Any concluding remarks about how your memory is? And
yeah, it really, I was a general secretary at the end. That was great too. But I think this is closer to my heart.
Thank you. That was you certainly brought a different light to life at IIT Madras. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
I think who else? I think Vijay Kumar from MIT. You want to?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Nagaraj. This is such a wonderful event. So you asked about life in IIT, and it's linked to my occupation, preoccupation. I'll go with the preoccupation. It's easier. Most of my IIT days, I did my BTech and my MS there, BTech in Chemical Engineering, MS in Industrial Management. And most of my BTech days, I shouldn't say most, a lot of it was spent on stage singing and doing skits. So which is still a preoccupation with me. I'm still singing a lot. But, as people point out, the world is a better place that I'm neither a musician or a chemical engineer. So that's okay. But I did, get a lot of problem solving, a lot of humor, and a lot of community at MIT, which really stands me very, very well today. The other preoccupation that I had during my MS days was, of course, hanging around with Rukmini, my wife, who did her MSc and MTech computer science over there. And, now she's, we've been married for, upwards of 40 years now together over here. The thing that, but in terms of occupation, I have been working with educational innovation and technology for about 35 years, 25 of which have been, almost 25, LinkedIn tells me, have been at MIT, and which would not have been possible had it not been for the encouragement, the support, the mentoring, the advice that was given to me by some key faculty over there, starting with Professor Gopichand, who was the head of chemical engineering, who was also our warden, and with whom I used to spend long hours walking between first Mandakini, Jamuna, to Velacharya Taramani. I used to bump beadis from him also. I remember that. Professor Gopichand, then subsequently Professor Nagarajan, both of these late Professor Gopichand and Nagarajan, who was in computer science OR, who introduced me to systems. And I saw the comments when people were reflecting on the IBM 370 having come to campus. Some of us in chemical engineering were allowed to do projects with the 370. And that's a very important element of what IIT and my experience there and the faculty they did. They allowed me and us to stick our necks out, and then deal with it. So it was very nice to get encouragement. And subsequently, because I did a lot of OR and things like that and systems, And Professor Ramani, who was industrial management, industrial engineering, who actually allowed me to do my MS project on educational planning, which is allowing OR techniques for educational planning. So these people sort of opened out the world. And of course, I ended up doing my PhD in future studies in education. And what I've been doing all this time is education planning, but through educational technology. So these were significant influences. But there was also this caring, which becomes a very big part of who you are. Professor Anant, the ex-director. I remember I had a motorcycle, a scooter accident in my 4th year. That was, by the way, around the strike year. And I was in Madras General Hospital. And Professor Anant used to visit me at the hospital and to make sure, when I was coming to that, I was not getting anxious about doing my periodicals and tests and things like that, so that I got more stress. And he'd actually come to the hospital to help me with fluid mechanics and stuff like that. Those kinds of personal touches which become part of the community, and because, many people pointed out that was our growing up years. So those were just tremendous influences. So occupation, preoccupation, problem solving, humor, community, I think all that was what was really given to me at IIT, which still persists, and I'll just close up saying, we do meet the Bay Area gang. We get on Zoom calls regularly. Our wing in Jamuna was called the Aplachari wing, which was a carryover from the Aero Astro wing from before us. And we got together some weeks ago on a Zoom call, and it's wonderful. It's as if we haven't missed a beat since then. We've become family friends, and the community still persists. So just like over here. So thank you again. It was really wonderful to hear these perspectives and these memories.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. So I think hopefully everyone has had a chance to, all the invite panelists have had a chance to say something live and or in the recorded format. I will now turn this over to the Executive Director of the IIT Madras Alumni Association, Ms. Lata Venkatachalam, to call up a couple more people who have expressed interest in speaking. And after that, Kumaran Sadasivam, our alumnus, who is the operational head of Heritage Center, will make some closing remarks. Lata?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Professor Nagarajan. I think Lionel Paul, you said you wanted to share something. Paul, you there? Paul?
Yes.
Yes, please. Like to hear from you, your memories. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My name is, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity of sharing a few memories from the days that I spent in IIT Madras. I was part of the 3rd batch. So 1961 is when I entered IIT. Ours was the first batch which went through this whole process without, with the entrance exam. Ours was the first batch to do the entrance exam and get selected. So 61 onwards, I had been in IIT Madras, mechanical engineering. And the days were so different at those times because the facilities were not ready. Many of the buildings were still under construction. Hostels were also, the hostel space was limited, and we had to share 2 in a room in Krishna Hostel just to make sure that everybody had a space to sleep in. So it was a great, fun experience, really. And things like the movies, the weekly movies that we used to have, there was no OAT at that time. We used to have it in the workshops, and very often either the projector would break down or the electricity would fail, and but still we would have a great time amusing one another with songs which just sort of came from nowhere. And we had a really wonderful time during those 5 years that we spent. Some of the most memorable experiences were with the faculty. And I particularly remember Professor Sengupta, the first director of IIT Madras. he was a gem, very soft-spoken. He used to treat all students like his kids, and he was extremely approachable, even though some people felt that they were scared of him, but that wasn't the case. One fun day he showed up at our classroom. He never used to take any classes, any lectures. He showed up at our classroom unannounced, and everyone was wondering what we had done wrong for him to suddenly show up at our doorstep. And he came and announced that he was going to take our applied mechanics class because he felt that he had so much to offer and it was all being wasted in administrative details. So it was great to hear him teach us. Oh, it was only for 1 hour, but it was a very nice experience. He was typical old school, taught it very methodically without missing any steps. It was great fun to be part of that. Another person who we had a chance to interact with quite a lot was Mr. Natarajan, who was the registrar at that time. A fantastic cricketer in his own right, but a sportsman of varied talents. And he was incredible because he used to, every institute day, he used to come up with his speech written by himself and addressing the topics of the day. It used to be a fantastic speech. Words would just roll out of his tongue, and he would make it so appealing. Guys would come to the Institute Day just to hear his speech. That was a fabulous experience. Just a few more things. After I left IIT Madras, BTech, I worked for 3 years, and one of the places I worked for was also India Pistons in Madras, where I had the privilege of working under the mentorship of C.K. Prahalad. It was a mind-blowing experience. He had so many innovative ideas that he had to share with all of us, and it was fantastic. Came back to IIT Madras to do my MTech in Industrial Engineering when Professor Ramani, who has been talked about earlier, was also one of my professors. Unfortunately, the professor that I had was Professor Lata, who unfortunately passed away when I was in my final year at MTech. But it was a great experience, nonetheless, to be taught by him and to listen to him. My whole IIT experience was a very sort of molding experience, molding us for the life ahead. And it was nice to finish my IIT BTech days with having been the sports secretary, having been the general secretary, and also having obtained the governor's medal from the hands of the illustrious Bharat Ratna C.V. Raman. It was a fabulous experience. I ended up working in the oil industry, worked for many years for Shell, and finally ended my career with Shell when I was seconded to Petronas to be an advisor on projects within the Petronas setup, but I retired with Shell. So I just thought I'd share some of these experiences because this has been a wonderful trip that I've taken through IIT Madras, and I would say that it was probably the best time that I've ever had anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been really wonderful. And, I have the privilege of listening to so many alumni when they come for the reunion. And it's so good to hear stories from, from the earlier batches about the workshop, cycling to the campus. And it's been lovely. Thank you so much for sharing all this.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yes. Ram Kumar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good evening. Thanks, Lata. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Ram Kumar.
Yeah. Thanks, Lata. Thanks to Professor Nagarajan. In fact, the lovely campus days is always enjoyable. In fact, after a long innings with the oil industry, I am now at Chennai, and I continue to visit the campus. And it gives a nostalgic moments as well as a lot of energy. Recalling my academic days, I had done MTech, and my professor is Dr. H. Raman. whom I'm in touch with him regularly. I visit his house often. He comes. I think he's 82 or 83 plus. I recall doing a project. He suggested I should only take a project of an industry, live project. And we had taken the port, simulation model for the Madras port. And that particular project came out very well. And I had to convert it to a paper after about 5 to 6 years because Professor Raman had given me a target. And it won the gold medal, Marine Engineering gold medal from the Institute of Engineers. In fact, that's the only paper which I ever published, and it has got a gold medal. I continue my interactions with the campus, with the alumni. Recently, nowadays I am working basically on the theme of nature, that is on water conservation, water recharge into the ground. In fact, IIT alumni had supported me in organizing a webinar, wherein again, my professor, Dr. Raman, participated and it nicely summarized. I would like to use the nature tag and work on mission water, because I feel the city of Chennai needs only 1/3 or even 30% of the rainfall for it to be water comfortable. I would like to work on this mission, which I have been doing partially for the last 20 years. Certainly, the support from the fraternity and the friends on the mission water would help a lot in our future generations enjoying this lovely campus as green as ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramkumar. Anybody else here from from the 2000 batches, 90s batches? I would love to hear if there is somebody from the 2000 or the 90s batch. Anybody out there could raise your hand. Okay. Thank you. I think there's been some lovely memories people have been sharing on the chat session. And I think having the professors with us today has been a real pleasure and awesome hearing to you. So over to you, Kumaran.
Thank you, Lata. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just a minute. We have Tejavit Jagadish here with us. He's raised his hand. So let's just get him to 1 second. Yes, yeah. So I think it's he's from the 2019 batch, and I think it's definitely would like to hear 2 lines from you, and because you have heard what it has been, over the years. So what is that striking difference that you see from what these veterans have been talking to what you have experienced on campus?
I was fortunate to have these veterans. I'm so lucky. I would like to thank each panelist personally. I'm speechless because after hearing all the speakers' message, I found that I have studied in a best institutions in India. Being from the village background, reaching to the Tier 1 cities like Chennai to having my education, I found fortunate to have you all people. Thank you so much, Lata, Venkatachalam, and Dr. R. Nagarajan for hosting this session. I'm really happy. I don't have words to speak out because most of you all sharing lots of experiences you have during your academic sessions. I had a great memories with campus. Definitely, that would be the definitely that would be great memories in my life. Professor Santi Swarup has changed my entire life. Who's from electrical engineering Just because of him only today I am what I am today, and I'm really happy. I'm so thankful to everyone. Thank you, IIT. Thank you, Professor Nagarajan, for hosting this memorable session, I feel. I'm so thankful to everyone, and definitely I would be continuing with IIT Ma and IIT Ma Association.
Thank you.
I want to be active participation in IIT Ma Alumni Association.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you, Lakshmi, for those lovely words on the chat. And I think, 77 is definitely one of the very active batches, with so many of them in Chennai, and a lot of stalwarts, a lot of shining stars out there. Thank you, Lakshmi, for this. Yeah. So over to you, Kumaran.
Thank you. And as we come to the end of today's program, it's my pleasant duty to thank everyone who's been in this program. What a ride through the decades of IIT Madras it has turned out to be. What a lot of nostalgic memories. And here at the Heritage Center, we have an oral history program in which we record 1-hour programs, video recordings. But this has turned out to be a unique oral history event by itself. I would like to remind you that this is a 2-day event that we really have. And tomorrow, at the same time, we will be having a treasure hunt, which is quite an entirely different kind of program from today's. So I hope you all have received the instructions and will join us tomorrow to take part in a unique virtual treasure hunt. Following the treasure hunt, you can go along online and see a little exhibition we have put up in the Heritage Center's website, which we have named the 60s Riffle, in keeping with the content it has, which comes from Mr. Lionel Pauls and other alumni here, their decade. If I may let the cat out a little, we do have a picture showing Mr. Lionel Paul and Sir C.V. Raman. But that's just one of them. So we invite you to that program tomorrow. So when I say we, I speak for 3 teams really. One is the Heritage Center team, and then we have the IIT Ma team, and there is another team that really put together the virtual treasure hunt. So thank you, good night or good morning, as the case be. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.